Broadcasting Corporation, or our participating sponsors.
The following is paid programming. The views are not necessarily those of this station. We are the talk of Chicago, 1690 WVON.
Now you official now, but you got a soul to say. I just been cooking that note. I'm about to drop in the few. Think if I call it the great, the people gon' call it the truth.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Assalamu alaikum, brothers and sisters. You are in the right place at the right time. 9 o'clock, Tuesday night. No better place to be than on WVON with Straight Words with Naba'a Richard Muhammad, the great Naba'a Richard Muhammad, the incomparable B.J. Murphy, and myself, James G. Muhammad. We're going to get into an hour, our first hour of just great conversation, and we want you to join us. Get your phones ready to call 773-591-1690, 773-591-1690 to join the conversation with Straight Words. We got a great show lined up for you. We have 3 hours of conversation, so get ready, buckle your seatbelts, and join in. I want to first introduce our great brother, Naba'a Richard Muhammad, who is the founder of this program and the editor-in-chief of the Final Call newspaper. Assalamu alaikum, brother Naba'a.
Wa alaikum salam, brother editor. How you doing?
Man, I am just blessed and highly favored. How about yourself?
I'm doing pretty good, brother editor. The illustrious former editor-in-chief of the Final Call, of course.
Yes, sir. Well, praise be to Allah, man.
Yes,
well,
sir.
Today, brother,
yes,
we're not joined with our brother BJ, so he's out taking care of business on assignment or whatever he's doing. I know he's doing good, so he won't be with us, but in spirit, I'm sure he will be. What we got lined up for today, brother?
Well, we will try to carry on without the man with the golden voice, as we call him.
Yes, that's
but
right.
I think we got a nice program set. You know, we're going to start with Nkechi Taifa of the Reparation Education Project. And this is a long time sister. I mean, it's been dealing with this subject of reparations for decades.
Yes, sir.
She's going to join us in a discussion and give us something of a report back from a recent United Nations forum dealing with reparations for Africa, the Caribbean, and the diaspora. And I'm hoping we're lucky enough to have Brother Cam Howard from Reparations United call in this one. So we're going to start right there. Then in the 10 o'clock hour, by Allah's grace, we're going back to a subject we dealt with before, black frats, hazing, and deaths. So, and that'll be in the 10 o'clock hour. We're going to have author, lecturer, and Omega Psi Phi member Shahid M. Allah. He's going to join us for this second discussion, and we're going to talk some updates following the tragic death of Caleb Wilson at Southern University, and unsanctioned activity at Southern University that led to his death, and continued problems, you know, with hazing, which has been outlawed for a long time. And I think, Brother James, when we talked about this, I guess maybe last week, I said this could have been any of our fraternities. Well, guess what? The brothers of Kappa Alpha Psi at Miami University in Ohio have been suspended 15 years. They are accused of 15 years. They were going to ban them for life. That was the first sentence. So they're being suspended, accused of beating we used to call them pledges back in the day. They call them now, I guess, inductees or recruits. But again, man, just terrible. Then I hope in the 11 o'clock hour, Brother Editor, I'm hoping that me and you can chop it up a little bit. You know, you had the
got my steak knife. Yeah.
You got the death of the Pope. We got Trump backing off of China now. I think China was about to throw that two-piece, and he backed up. Then we got the Secretary of Defense. He making phone calls and including everybody in the world on the street like these days. He ain't called me, man. He did not include me in that call, man.
Oh man, he's ex-military too, man.
So they say, but I mean,
he should know better, man.
Bro,
you know, you're like,
yeah. So we got Sister Nkechi Taifa, the great attorney, writer, organizer. You know it. She can do it. Let's bring Sister Nkechi in. Yes, he's a bad mama. Shut your mouth.
Shut your mouth.
Sister Nkechi, are you with us?
Yes, I am. Can you hear me?
We can hear you very well, my sister. Thank you for joining us.
All right, well, I'm glad to be on, and my voice is a little hoarse because I've been ripping and running and traveling and all that, but I wanted to make sure I joined you brothers this evening.
Well, we appreciate it. Just take your time. You're on. That's Brother James, of course.
Yes, ma'am.
Past editor-in-chief for the Final Call, and Brother Naba'a. Sister Nkechi, so there was a meeting at the United Nations about reparations, talking about reparations for Africa, the Caribbean, and the rest of the diaspora. Can you give us I think it was like 4 days? Can you give us a brief summation of what that was about?
Yes, absolutely. So this was a permanent forum on people of African descent, which was a body of the United Nations that started several years ago. One year they meet at the United Nations in New York. The other year they meet at the United Nations in Geneva, and it goes back and forth. So this particular one was in New York. I was at the one in Geneva last year, and I was in New York the year before that. But it's a scenario where folks from all over the world come, particularly from the continent of Africa, from the African diaspora, from the Caribbean, from Europe, from South America, Brazil, Cuba, you name it. Afro-descendant people come together to deal with these issues, okay? It's part of a formal United Nations body. So just last week, there were 4 days of discussion, debate, and the like, and I was part of that. I actually spoke on the floor of the United Nations as part of a panel that included representatives from the African Union, representatives from CARICOM, which is the Community of Caribbean Nations, all on the issue of reparatory justice.
I want to get to one thing. I got a real basic question that I want to get to because I think there's some things floating around, and I'd like for us to try to bring some clarity. But what were some of your major points? I did pick up something that you were quoted as saying by UN News, and I used that in a column. But give us more about what were maybe 2 or 3 of the major points that you made.
So some of the points that I made in particular was dealing with the issue of, one of them was dealing with the issue of language and using the terminology of the oppressor to describe our oppression only intrinsic to harm. And what I'm talking about is using the term slave trade, okay? That enshrines outdated and harmful narratives. Trade implies voluntary exchange, masking the brutal reality that it was a crime against humanity. It dignifies the merchants and not the millions of us who suffered. It was not trade, it was war. And that's one of the things that I talked about, that it's not about semantics, it's about truth-telling, and it's about building an international human rights architecture, okay, that puts our issues in its rightful place. That's not sanitized. You know, terms like trade, and it's become part of our lexicon. It's sanitized. It masks the brutal reality of what it is and what happened to us. That was one of the things. Another major point I was making was that it appears as if the, shall I say, the definition of the term African diaspora seems to sideline Black folk in the United States. Okay, it appears as if it promotes state actors, i.e., the African nations, which have states and government and all like that, or the CARICOM nations, the Caribbean nations that have government and states. But we over here, through no fault of our own, non-self-governing African descendant people, are more so represented by what they call in the international sphere civil society as opposed to state government. So we're not necessarily at the drafting tables where policies and things like that are devised. We're kind of like an afterthought, shall we say. And I said that needs to stop. I said that the momentum that we see globally right now has a lot to do with people like the Honorable Marcus Messiah Garvey, you know, who talked about the unification of Africa, like people like Elijah Maliko Shabazz, Malcolm X, who talked about the issue of human rights. Queen Mother Audley Moore, who shepherded the issue of reparations all across everywhere on the world stage, you know. And so these people did not have their own governments that spoke for them. They were part of civil society. And so I basically was saying that as we envision the issue of reparatory justice globally, that the African diaspora must not be seen to be limited to state actors, that it includes all of us, and we should be equal partners helping to shape and not shadow our global reparations agendas.
Yeah, because, you know, I was, when I was looking at some of the report backs or descriptions of what happened, I was looking at what was described as a partnership between CARICOM, the Caribbean community, as that regional organization that represents the nations in the Caribbean, and the African Union, which represents, of course, the nations in Africa. And they're having a partnership, and for 2020, and the 2025 theme is justice for Africans and people of African descent through reparations. So the first thing I thought was, wait a minute. Wait a minute. So you got CARICOM and you got the African Union. Right. Where are we?
Right.
Where are we? And the point that you made can absolutely not be stressed enough. This did not originate. Well, we know there's always been movement in the Caribbean and to some degree in Africa, but this was pushed by people. So we are not, and our suffering is not to be shunted to the side. Right. You talk. I mean, how are you going to negotiate or even frame anything without us as being major players?
Exactly. Exactly.
Not only that, brother and sister, the fact that in 2025 and even before now, the United States, the USA, is the most powerful, the quote unquote wealthiest, the strongest military power in the world. It's an empire. And it didn't get there off the backs of white folks. It got here off the backs of Black people in the United States who were enslaved and held in bondage. So in contrast to others of the quote unquote diaspora, we have been put into the lowest position on the ladder, while the wealthiest country in the world is at the top of the ladder. So we definitely have a special place, and we should have a primary seat at the table, because in reality we have basically suffered the most in terms of the degradation, in terms of the dehumanization, in terms of just the total taking of our humanity, because not only did they take our name, our language, our culture, et cetera, but many of those in the diaspora held on to much of the culture, much of the language than we did here. So I totally agree. We should not only be at the table, but we should be at the front of the table.
Yeah, so I don't want to get into a hierarchy of harms, okay? But we should be equal partners at the table. And one of the things that the African Union did was designate what's called the sixth region of Africa as embracing the African diaspora. And what we are saying, and what I brought out in my testimony on the floor of the United Nations, is that it's not just state actors that are legitimate aspects of the African diaspora, but it's all of us, whether the government represents us or not. And that's one of the recommendations that that I made, to unambiguously acknowledge the African Sixth Region as embracing all segments of the African diaspora, not just state actors or countries with direct parental or natal connections to Africa, but all of us as well. So I think I made that point very strongly, and I think that it was well received. And I will say the fact that they did have me officially on the panel alongside the representative from the African Union and the representative of CARICOM shows that at least the permanent forum on people of African descent is sensitive to that issue as well.
Yeah, because I think that what I've known of the reparations movement, wherever you were, where you suffered from this enemy, you had the right to demand redress from that enemy who was primarily responsible for inflicting suffering on you. Yes, it was a global tragedy and a global war on us. But the thing was, if you're in the Caribbean and British was the main ones, you could get redress from them. We in America have suffered under the United States. So does this forum negate us as Black people from dealing with our own reparations in America, especially even if you're trying to go through the UN? Your major block is going to be the United States vetoing anything that comes up.
Yeah, so the Permanent Forum on People of African Descent is made up of representatives from various countries across the world. In the United States, representative to the Permanent Forum is a good brother named Justin Hansford, who professor at Howard Law School, who was very much involved and instrumental in the posthumous pardon for the Honorable Marcus Messiah Garvey, and actually recently wrote a book called Jailing the Rainbow about the various legal struggles that Marcus Garvey faced during the 20s in the role of the U.S. government. So we have a progressive person, I guess you could say, that is representing our interests on the Permanent Forum. But it's incumbent on all of us to do what we can to raise our voices to make sure that the world community hears what we have to say.
Mhm.
Yeah, but so again, the way this thing is structured, if Black folk in America decide to file their claim against the United States of America, does this UN body negate us filing our own claim and representing ourselves directly to the people that slaughtered us?
I mean, the body can't negate that. I mean, on the civil society side, I mean, let me just say, I was the People's Council, what they call prosecutor, in 2021, charging the United States government with human rights violations. We had an international jurist that came and heard the charges of genocide against our people in various areas, whether it was the health, education, the criminal punishment system, political prisons, you know, you name it. So no one can stop us from asserting, you know, claims and the like. But we do need to take things out of the jurisdiction of the United States. We need to go to the World Court, the International Criminal Court, and all of those other mechanisms as well. This isn't anything new. This is what Paul Robeson and W.B. Du Bois and William Patterson and them did in 1951. Went to the United Nations, charging the United States government back in 1951 with genocide. And since then, there's been numerous claims along those lines as well.
Yeah, I just don't want our people, because you got different people out here saying different things.
Right.
And I don't want our people to misunderstand and believe that somehow the work we've been doing, like the genocide petition, I mean, that this was Black folk in America.
Yes.
This wasn't everybody in the world. This was Black folk in America asserting that. And so I do agree that we should work in every form, but I think everybody got to be real clear. No, we assert our interests, and we can work together because we got a common enemy. But I think it needs to be clear, because I think otherwise we're going to end up with some more of the kind of splintering that we already seen, and more of the kind of animosity that comes up from some people. But let's bring in Sister Marguerite, see what she'd like to contribute.
Oh, assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam.
Good evening, and thank you, sister, for representing us, for your work, your legal counsel. Thank you, attorney, sister attorney. Also, I'd like to add, brothers, that because we were quote unquote, I will say European countries are as well owing to the Africans stolen out of Africa and brought over to these quote unquote Americas for the purpose of being slaves. Spain, England, France, and Holland, and the Dutch.
Yeah.
Because all of them were involved, well, like you say, the misquoting of calling it a slave trade when there was no equal trading partners. People were forced. And this land called the United States, first the 13 colonies of the British. In 1619, we were on the colonies were under British rule. So those Africans stolen from the ship that was headed to Mexico or South America, they say the Africans came from what's now called Angola, and they in the waters took that British ship, took the Africans off the ship and brought them to Jamestown, Virginia in 1619. That was under British rule. And it wasn't until July 4, 1776, when those so-called former British patriots decided we will no longer be part of the Britain Empire, but be our own. So from not until 1776, when they said, okay, we're pulling away from Great Britain, let's say from 1776 going back to 1619, that's Great Britain that held us enslaved.
Absolutely correct, my sister.
And even the French held land over here.
Yes,
that enslaved us as Africans. And the Dutch did too.
We got claims all over.
Yes, so the claims are starting, and we build not just the United States. Yes, brother Naba'a.
Yes, ma'am.
We built Europe as well. Everything in Europe, the gold, those. If you look at the architecture of what the homes, the so-called castles that went from stone to marble with gold trimmings, the churches, how they went from stone brick buildings to synagogues with gold on the altar, cathedrals with gold on their altars, coming from the island, the indigenous Tianos that lived there 10,000 years before Columbus's ship, the Santa Maria, crashed on the island, now called Haiti, because the black former slaves tried to rename the island the name that the Tianos, indigenous people, were calling it. That gold came from that island, siphoned by the Spanish. And the English government said to John Morgan, you go and intercede those ships and get the gold off those ships and bring it to us in England, coming from that island, Haiti. And so those countries in Europe, as well as the so-called United States, which is the birth child of the European country, England, owes us as well. They have to be included in on our fight for reparations. And they would take
you need to get this sister's contact information, because she needs to be a guest on your show, because she's dropping some pure pearls of wisdom.
Thank you.
Absolutely 100% correct.
They traded us from the Carolinas, the South Carolinas. We were coming from many of those Caribbean islands, being brought over here. Then if they had a quote unquote problem with us, would send us over. We were back and forth off the islands. One of my relatives, they've done the research, got to Mississippi via coming from Virginia. So we were being taken all across this so-called country, the United States, these yet to be United States. The Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan's parents come from the Caribbean.
Right.
Because they were his forefathers were brought there from Africa to be enslaved. So the European countries have to be included in on these documents, as well as the so-called United States. Because if you look at the dates that we became a quote-unquote nation, it was first after being birthed by the Europeans that left Europe and came over here. And yes, many of us have mixed bloods with European, the indigenous, the Africans. So these are our relatives we're talking about who did us wrong. Yes. Okay, and I'll get up and continue listening, and thank you all for bringing this subject up that needs to be talked about. And if the Trump and the Elon Musk and people did their DNA tests, they would find out that they're fighting against their own. And thank you all.
Thank you, my sister. And she reminded me also, because I wanted to mention, and I forgot until the sister mentioned Haiti, that at the Permanent Forum at the United Nations, during that time of the session, was the 200th anniversary of the ransom, what they call the ransom, that Haiti, as they call it, was forced to pay to France for recognition of their freedom, their independence in 1804. April 17th, I think, was the date, and that was right during the session. There was a very large Haitian delegation there, and the people were demanding justice, reparations, repayment of debt. And what happened during that time, as a result of the advocacy of the people, the France's president has called for a joint commission between France and Haiti to discuss some of these issues. Now, again, the Haitians were saying, we don't need no commission. We don't need to discuss it. It's time to pay up, reparations, now. But that is the first step that France has never even done that before. So there's supposed to be some kind of commission set up. I just wanted to mention that.
Very good. We got Cliff, right, Brother James?
Okay. Yeah, is Cliff on?
Yes, Assalamualaikum, brothers. If I can get a quick question in to the sister based on the history. Listen, in spite of what happened, I don't mean to deviate, but just want to get some clarity. In spite of the loss of this so-called Pope, and how people are, particularly Black people, with the Easter, the whole Christianity. So my question is, what's our original religion as Black people, the creator of the universe? Our original religion, if that makes any sense.
I'm gonna let the brothers handle that one.
Yeah, Cliff, that's the original religion we have is the nature in which we were born. The nature in which we were born. Okay. Yeah. Go ahead, Sister Nkechi. Was there another point you were trying to make? I want to make sure we give you enough time to share whatever you would like to share.
No, well, the only other thing I would like to say, and I apologize for my voice. It's just, I've been doing a lot of talking. Is that there's going to be a big national reparations rally in Washington, D.C. on May the 17th. This is not a protest at the White House. This is not a lobbying event. This is to celebrate the extent to which the reparations movement in this country has advanced over the last several years. The backlash that we see right now is specifically because of the successes that we have been having. The fact that Trump and his folks are talking about reparations for white people, reparations for the January 6th insurrections, reparations for those negatively impacted by immigration. I mean, it's ludicrous and it's hypocrisy, but it's all as a result of the momentum that we have created across this country. So this National Reparations Rally is going to celebrate us, okay, so that we can be fortified to keep on moving and to keep the fight on. So people can go to www.nationalreparationsnetwork.org and you can find all the information about it. That's nationalreparationsnetwork.org.
Well, sister, thank you for coming on. Yeah. Go ahead, Brother James. Go ahead.
No, I was going to ask this to the point that you just mentioned about when you said the Haitians, say, well, we don't need another conference, just pay up the reparations because it was an obvious wrong that was done and justice needs to be served. To that point, then, these efforts to get the reparations, I'm just curious of where you see at some point, what are we going to do with regard, Trump is not about it. He wants white folks to get reparations. They may never change their mind. So my question is, how do we move forward to make something real, make something really happen? As we see some small efforts in some small towns are actually making movements like in Evanston and some places across the country. But as a effort from the UN and whatever countries we want are demanding reparations, how do you, where is it going to go? I guess let me just say this. But, yeah,
my brother, it's more than just a few towns. I mean, the state of California held hearings in a 2-year study on the issue of reparations and made actual recommendations. The state of New York right now is in the process of having hearings. The state of Illinois is in the process of having hearings. The state of Maryland, the governor, hopefully, fingers crossed, is about to sign a bill that was passed by the Maryland legislature. So these are states, in addition to really nearly 100 municipalities across the country, are doing likewise. So, I mean, I'm just saying, this is not something that's just happening now. I personally have been working on this issue for
I know.
For 5 decades. I ain't no spring chicken.
No,
50 years, Yeah, so I'm just saying, and I'm saying seriously, the backlash we're seeing is because it's moved from the revolutionary fringe more so to the mainstream. And the international and global community is watching what we're doing here. Okay, so we need to make sure that we keep up the fight. Okay, that we don't get discouraged, and that we keep this issue as our North Star.
Well, sister, thank you so much. We're gonna have to invite you back one day when you have rested your voice, because I know, like you said, you've been in this fight for a long time, and you got a lot, and you done fought a lot of people for a long time, and you got great wisdom and courage and all of that. But sister, thank you for giving us your time. We know you take care of the business. We appreciate you. We love you. And we respect all the work that you do, day in, day out, week in, week out, 50 years, please. Thank you.
Thank you very much, my brothers. Anytime, just give me a call. Peace and blessings.
Right. Peace and blessings. Yeah, so, this is, brothers and sisters, I'm going to say this because I've often thought about it. We have people that have been working on this thing for a long time. And even, I'm talking about among us, even if we see things a little differently. I remember the Minister Farrakhan saying some years ago, you should never disrespect a bridge that took you from where you were to where you are. And while some of us may have all kinds of ideas, remember, your ideas in one way, even the idea of reparations didn't originate with you. It originated with someone else. And so even as we seek in our own way to get justice and reparations to our people, we should always respect those that came before us, that laid down ways of thinking, that laid down arguments, and that laid down scholarship that we can build on and use. So I'm for whatever multi-platform claims we can go for. But I'm just going to say this, Brother James, and you can get on in if you like. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad was very clear about America.
That's right.
When it came to us. And America's responsibility for where we are and what he wanted. And he didn't call it reparations, but he called for a separate state or territory of our own that was minerally rich with an outlet to the sea. And he also calls for America to suffice our needs for 20 to 25 years until we were able to fully go for ourselves. So I just want to let us know, remind us, for those that know, and kind of share that maybe for those who don't. But I think the key, brothers and sisters, the key is the dialogue. Don't ever start talking about what can't be done because white folks ask you, well, what about the ones from Jamaica? What about the ones that came in the 70s? What about the ones that came yesterday? Are they going to get reparations? You tell that white man or woman, you got to see them about their claim. I'm not talking about their claim. I'm talking about mine. Because too often, we jump in to, in some way, defend the enemy or talking about how much the enemy got. I tell you what, you better look at your man, Mr. Biden, and your man, Mr. Trump, and the billions they pouring into Israel. Billions. Did you hear me? Did you hear me? Billions. Where the money come from? It's because what they wanted to do. So don't ever let nobody tell you what's impossible. People can do what they want to do, and they definitely can do what Allah forces them to do.
Yeah.
They
brother.
definitely do what he forces them to do.
Yeah. Yeah. Like you said, Brother Napa, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad's position is my North Star on this. He didn't, like you say, he didn't call it reparations, but that's what it was. It was to repair the damage. And to the point that I was asking, that has been on the back page of our paper since 79, and before that it was on the back page of the Muhammad Speaks. White folks don't have any intention of answering that demand for states, not on their own. They will be forced to, perhaps by things that will happen across the country by Allah's grace, but they have no intention of willingly doing that and giving justice. But they do what they desire to do. Like you said, they put millions and millions into Israel. They rebuilt Europe. How much money did it cost to rebuild Europe? But they did it because they had the will to do it. They wanted to do it. They don't want to give justice to Black people and the darker people of the planet. And so, it's going to take more than just us marching and doing our appeals. But yeah, it's great that some of these states are doing these things by those who have the heart to do it. But it's going to take more. But the messenger's position is my North Star on how to make that appeal.
Yeah. Yeah, and to me, the big thing is we're moving in one direction, right?
Yeah.
I remember when you talk reparations, these people would laugh at you. People would laugh at you. You know what I mean? It wasn't something that people in Congress talked about, even though Cory Booker and Kamala Harris talked about it when they were running in a primary against Mr. Biden. Then it died. So I think that what Sister said about the growth of this thing, and I think she said like over 100 municipalities. I think that's saying something about a common mindset that we're growing into, and a common recognition that we are owed something. We are owed something for what we suffered. We are owed something for the war, the transatlantic slavery war that we were subjected to. We're owed something. So I think we just have to keep on, and we just have to keep dialoguing with one another. We should not fall out with one another. And I think if we focus on program and position, because the Honorable Elijah Muhammad said, you don't ever attack anyone personally. Right. He said that you critique people on program and position. So there's no need for us to insult one another because I see something a little differently.
Right. Right. And that's kind of where we get lost. Like, I think it was Brother Cliff that asked the question about the original religion or whatever it is. Mm-hmm. I mean, that's a good question to be asked at some point, but that kind of then draws the lines, in my opinion, it's like, well, some may agree to what your answer was, some may not agree, et cetera, et cetera. Mm-hmm. But let's keep walking. Like you said, you can have critique of the position and program or whatever, but let's keep walking and agreeing to the things that are true and have one goal. I mean, I believe we have one goal. We just can't let the enemy divide us, because that's exactly what he will do and what he will try to do, and his crafty ways to divide us as seeing each other as different.
Yeah, and I think, Brother James, in each of these fights, whether we're talking statewide, whether we're talking cities and towns, we're going to learn something.
Yeah.
We're going to learn something. And I think that when we get to the point where we see that no matter what these people say, they are not trying to give us what we deserve, I think that's going to help us reach a point of decision collectively. So I think all of it is good discussion, and it helps to awaken those to this thought of redress and maybe I've never really thought about it before.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Brothers and sisters, if you want to get in on a conversation, I know we got another one coming up, but the number is 773-591-1690, 773-591-1690. Yeah. Oh, and brother, I should mention this, right, Brother Naba? If you would like to help us to keep this conversation and this station, this program going, Straight Words, if you want to help us keep it going, if you want to hear more conversation like you just heard of these critical issues, then support us. Go to the website, straightwords.com. There you will find how you can help to keep the program going through your contribution. I would say your generous contribution through Zelle, Cash App. What else you got, Brother Naba? PayPal, Apple Pay. You can even call Brother Naba, text Brother Naba directly to get more information on how you can contribute. And Brother Naba, that number is 312, I believe it's 490, 480, and then 977-5.
Yes, sir.
Okay, 312-480-9775. That's how you can help. If you want this kind of programming to continue, right now, get your phone out, go to straightwords.com and find the Zelle or the Cash App or the PayPal, whatever app you love to use, send a donation or text Brother Naba, 312-480-9775. Now, you know President Trump is attacking all forms of journalism. He's trying to take funding away from any of the public broadcasting, your WBEZs, your WTTWs on television. He's trying to take away funding for organizations that bring you news that you can use. This program you can use. You can bet your bottom dollar on this one that we're going to try to give you the best information that will help you and us in our daily lives. So go ahead to the website, straightwords.com or 312-480-9775. What we got coming up, Brother Naba, or do you want to have any more anything else to say on the reparations piece?
Yeah, I think again, for me, brother, it's amazing how far we have come. And I think that's why when Sister Nkechi says that even Trump talking about reparations for white people, it is so ludicrous, but it is a sign that we are continuing to grow and impact minds and hearts. So the enemy, of course, always wants to make us divide one another. Let's be smarter than that today than we were yesterday.
Yeah. Yes, sir. Don't fall for the okie doke.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, sir. What we got coming up on the next hour?
Well, on the next hour, we're going back to black frats, hazing, and deaths. We're going to talk about, again, some of the tragedy with the death of our brother Caleb Wilson and some other things. We're going to explore that a little more with brother Shahid M. Allah, lecturer, author, and Omega Man.
Yeah, and as you were at the beginning of the show when you were talking about the different news events for the last hour that we're going to be on, I did see that there was a Protect White America rally in response to the Carmelo Anthony issue about that football player that allegedly was killed by our brother Carmelo Anthony. So they had a Protect White America rally down there, man. You gotta see it to believe it. But anyway, brother, now we're at the top of the hour. I know our brother